Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Thursday, August 12th, just a little bit after market close here, 4:04 p.m. Eastern Time in Jacksonville, Florida. And in today's video, we've got three dirty 30 type of stocks that made some decent moves today that I want you guys to keep an eye on, some that are breaking out, some that are pushing through some resistance levels. And for those of you that may not know the term dirty 30 that Don coined, that is the growth type of stocks that really got hit hard in the February, March sell-off earlier this year. Additionally, we've got three new buys outside of the technology and growth world that we want to go over as well. But before we do that, let's talk about what happened. You can see here, it is a tug of war between growth and value, inflation and rates in focus. So we had the CPI yesterday, which is consumer price index. Today we had the PPI, which is producer price index. And we're seeing rates at a very pivotal point, as well as bond prices. And obviously the markets are kind of tied to that here. We saw a nice bounce today for the Qs off of the 21. We're going to look at that chart here in just a moment. But as far as performance goes, S&P up 1/3%, Qs up about the same, about 1/3%. The Dow was basically flat, slightly green. Mid caps down 0.16%, and Russell 2000 down 0.28%. Those were the laggards today. Oil and gas not having the greatest day, a little bit of a drag as well on mid caps and small caps. Market state remains the same, uptrend. We are above the 21 on all the major indices, with the exception of small caps. Small caps still kind of struggling to get back above the 50. They're kind of right there on the 21, but they're the laggard at the moment. The market trend, or the Grotection gauge on the right side of the screen, no changes to that either. Market leaders, for the most part, are acting pretty healthy. Short-term and mid-term do have that yellow arrow pointing towards neutral, primarily because of small caps, but we also did touch the 21 EMA, or got really close to it on the Qs today. As well. Long term, we are above the 200-day moving averages. And before we go to the charts, this is the team at Revere. If you have any questions about anything I cover in the video, please send me an email, hunter@revereasset.com. If you're interested in our strategy, what we do on a daily basis, what our investment approach is, please just give us a call at 855-732-5932, or you can email anybody here, Dan, Tim, Hunter, Merrill, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com. So let's start with the S&P here. Like I said a second ago, up slightly, just eking out new highs, staying above the 8-day. The S&P continues to grind higher. And the Qs bouncing off the 21 EMA today. Like I said here, you can see the 21 EMA at 364.50 more or less. The low of the day for the Qs, 364.30. Bounced off of it back above the 8-day on QQQ here. And next, let's take a look at the Dow. Looks pretty good here, just outside, sitting right here at all-time highs pretty much, closed at the top of the range today. And lastly, or last two here, small caps, like we said, still kind of struggling, really looking, like I said this, I believe, on Monday's video. I would set an alert on small caps right around 225, and I think I did, and maybe they got hit, and then it reversed down. So I'm going to reset those alerts for IWM at 225 right there to see if they can push through that 50-day and those previous highs on the left-hand side there. And lastly, MDY looks better than IWM, actually starting to shape up a little bit here. A laggard today, but holding up on the 8-day exponential. Also, I mentioned yields and bond prices at a pivotal point. That is TLT right here, which actually undercut the 50 today and reclaimed it. Closed in the upper part of the range. Now I would be watching to see if TLT can get back above the 200-day, which is right around 146.75. I would set alerts on TLT around 147, and then also at like 148, 149 range as well. That would give you an idea that it's clearing these moving averages. In the event it moves higher, I would also set an alert at the low of today to let you know if that triggers as well. So let's talk about some of the leading stocks today. Net down yesterday, up today, added to Motley Fool, I believe, as their pick. I believe it's every Thursday at 1 o'clock. I don't know if it's on a weekly basis, but nonetheless, net with a nice bounce, getting back above the 8-day, staying above the 21 EMA as well. Datadog, we actually added a small bit to this one today. This is a gap up we bought, undercut the 8 EMA, got back above it, acting pretty well. You can see the volume the last 2 days has been pretty strong. And I know if you look at these 3 red bars here, you'd say, well, look at the above average volume on the selling here. That's true, but 2 of those days it also finished very close to the top of the range. You always want to take that into consideration when you see those above average volume down days. Check and see if it's a day where it bounced off of a serious level of support, a moving average, if it closed at the very top of the range, that kind of thing. That's always an important little piece to know. Also very strong today, Apple in the growth protection portfolio along with net, leading the big tech today. You can see that's a big breakout from a tight little consolidation here on Apple. 150 would be the area you want to watch, no doubt here, and see if it clears this level. That's something you want to pay attention to. I'm actually going to set an alert slightly below that just so I know if it's about to happen at 149.80. Tesla basically touched the 8 or this 700 level and bounced today, undercut it. You can see 699.40 the low, slightly undercut the 8 EMA and bounced and got back above 720. I would watch 729 as the important level here on Tesla, which is pretty much above these highs. 727, 728. That's what I would be looking for. I also set an alert here with you as well. And a few more good ones before we get to the dirty 30 types. Upstart continues to be strong. This was a new buy we made earlier this week on a breakout. As you can see, massive breakout for Upstart, massive numbers, revenue and EPS far above expectations, higher high today. You're going to want to watch this one past 191, 192 and see what happens if it gets there. And just a couple interesting things today. ARKK and IPO, both green today. These are your risk on or more speculative type of ETFs. Both of these green with volume today. That's something you want to take notice of. And in that same kind of breath, here's those 3 dirty 30 stocks to pay attention to. Number 1, DraftKings. I bought this in my beta test portfolio today as it pushed through the 200-day moving average here. And these 2 highs, right around 54, that was the big trigger for me, and it did that. You can see the above average volume here. DraftKings the last couple of days, they just reported earnings not very long ago, so a nice move for a stock that's starting to make a little bit of comeback. The next area I'm watching is if it can get to 56, how does it act there? Beyond that, you've got these moving averages hopefully starting to curl up. You want to see this 200-day start to act as support now and no longer resistance on DraftKings. Palantir, I also bought this one in my beta test portfolio. Nice gap up today, above average volume, almost 400% above average, most in quite some time. And the important thing you want to see here is above the 50 and the 200, which are right around 2360 and 2390. And if you pull back to a weekly on Palantir, it's right on / above these weekly moving averages, the 30 and the 40 week moving average, 2480, 2462. So clearing some big levels of resistance, you want to see if these areas can hold, and if Palantir can continue and get above 25, then the 27 area and 26 area becomes a focus to the upside. And last one here of the dirty 30 type, this is Unity Software, a Kathy Wood favorite. It has made a very big move the last 2 days, but a big earnings gap here, and then follow through today with more volume on Unity. So some stocks that took some pretty big falls, making some nice comebacks recently. ESTC, an under the radar name that showed a little bit of strength today, very little volume, holding up at the 150 level. XLV, one of the leading sector today, healthcare acting well. And lastly, 2 new buys we made, Generac and Caterpillar. Generac, you see this nice consolidation getting back above the 21 following earnings after a really brutal sell-off and flush to the 50 there. And then Caterpillar, you can see this, the volume the last couple of days getting back above that 50-day moving average. We bought this one as it rested after a couple of strong days in a row there. And just to highlight a few of the weaker ones today, Snapchat, We do still own this one, not acting the greatest, close kind of weak, but very light volume. Denbury, this was a new buy today as it stuck its head above the 50. Obviously, it came back on us a little bit, so we'll be watching this one very closely. Ideally, you'd like to see this get back above that 50-day moving average, but the oil and gas sector is one you want to pay attention to. I talked about steel and home builders a few weeks ago, really starting about a week and a half to 2.5 weeks ago. Well, oil and gas has been consolidating / in pullback mode for about 6 weeks, which is very similar to what XME did. So I would keep your eye on the oil and gas group to start to see any signs of life, which that means volume and pushing through levels of resistance, right? Coin, a recent gap up on earnings that really fell apart today. I actually bought this one yesterday. It acted very well. Bought it around 284 in my beta test portfolio. Ended up getting stopped out today in the low 260s as it gapped down pretty much right at the open, right to around 265, and then just continued lower throughout the day. Excuse me. Cryptocurrency was also weak today. SOX was weak, but particularly semiconductor equipment, right? So Applied Materials, for example, Lam Research. So semi equipment really was bearing the brunt of the weakness for semiconductors today, which was probably a drag on your AMDs and NVIDIAs of the world as well, at least to some degree. And lastly, I mentioned the oil and gas space. Here is XOP and OIH. They actually started pretty strong this morning. I'm going to pull up a 1 minute. Actually, let me pull up a 5 minute for you guys so you can see the whole day. So you can see the big move this morning, which ended up failing. The XOP came all the way back, but ended up finishing pretty decent here on XOP. XLE looks a little bit better. Back above the 21 EMA by a slight little bit on XLE. That's something you want to pay attention to. There hasn't been a ton of volume, but you want to pay attention to that. Same thing with XOP. I would watch XOP above these highs here. So above 84, I would watch XOP, and then I'd also watch these highs here above 85, 86. I'd keep an eye on XOP. So that wraps it up today, everybody. Thank you for listening. I will see you guys on the podcast this weekend, and I hope you all have a great weekend as well, and then I'll see you on next Monday's video. Thanks, everybody.